to episode 296 of Late Night Linux, recorded on the 26th of August 2024. I'm Joe, and with me are Phelan.
Out the door, line to the left, one cross each.
Graham.
Wonderwall.
And Will.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to going to see Oasis. That'll be great. Before we get started, just another plug for OggCamp, which is the 12th and 13th of October in Manchester in the UK. It's a free culture unconference. Be there and be square. So everyone should definitely come to that. I talked to Gary on the last episode about this, but we forgot to mention the raffle. Ideally, we need some people or companies to donate stuff to the raffle so that people can then win it and support the event. So anything that's related to the kind of stuff we talk about would be most welcome. Anyway, it's been a month since we last recorded, so let's do some news. The first is great news. Linux is 33 years old yesterday as we record.
Time for crucifixion.
Hence your joke.
You see?
It all makes sense. So 33 years ago, yesterday as we record, Linus posted to the mailing list about how it's not going to be big and professional and all that. Makes you feel old, doesn't it?
It does. I'm just contemplating my mortality as you talk. I probably won't be here in another 33 years.
Well, you never know. I mean, I don't remember it at the time, obviously, but I remember it being like 15 years ago, and now it's 33 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't remember it at the time, but I was at university and I remember pestering the IT people for ages and ages and ages to try and get Linux on some of the servers. So it was just at the very early stages of that. But even then, I think, even without the internet and only with Janet in the UK, the educational internet equivalent, there was still a buzz about it because it was free and it was professional experience of networking and setting up a Unix-like system, which you could theoretically do anything with. So even then it was exciting, but it wasn't until years later that I tried it myself.
So if Linus hadn't invented Linux and changed the world in the way that we know it to be now, do you think somebody else would have come along with something similar? Do you think it was, inevitable that this sort of software would exist?
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't think it is inevitable, no. I don't know. There wasn't much else there at the time that I'm aware of. There was Minix, of course, and Tannenbaum's other stuff, but it came at the right time, and I don't know if there were any other alternatives at that time.
Where was BSD at the time? Surely that was fairly established, wasn't it?
Were they not in court?
Probably.
I don't know. I was still using my Amiga.
Yeah, maybe stuff like that would have become more popular on servers. Who knows?
I do think things would have been very different. I've kind of lost the thought of this now, but at the time I used to think that companies like Amazon and Google just wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for Linux. And if Linux wasn't around to be the kind of the software foundation for those companies that then could scale and become the horrible internet that we all know and love, what would the internet have become? What shape would it be? So even if there is some kind of equivalent that other people use, would companies like it would have come to dominate in the way that they have?
Hang on, are you trying to make a point that Linux is a really bad thing?
Well, maybe, yeah.
No, I think that something would have filled the void. It was inevitable.
I'm not so sure it was. I mean, if you think about the state that Microsoft thought the way the internet should work, they really missed the boat on that one. And if there was nobody there to take that place, would we even have half the internet that we have? And I don't know, I don't think people were willing to give their time to the BSDs for sort of that pact of just giving it away for free, because otherwise surely they would have done better. Or would we claim that the need to do the open source would have been fulfilled by giving everything away? I'm not sure.
No, GNU Herd would have been completely dominant.
I was waiting for that.
Good point.
All right, well, speaking of Google, they have lost an antitrust case.
Sad.
Well, that sounds on the face of it like a good thing, right? But it turns out that it might actually affect Firefox quite badly, because the crux of this antitrust case is that it's not on for them to be paying all these companies like Apple and Mozilla to be the default search. So what does that mean? It means that Mozilla might lose a massive chunk of their revenue, like by far the biggest chunk of their revenue, which is terrible for Mozilla, and therefore you would assume bad for Firefox.
Is it though? is this possibly the kick in the arse that Mozilla need? I mean, let's say, put it this way, having that money has not done them much good in the last 10 years, so maybe not having that money might actually do some good.
I don't know about that, Yes, they've been a little bit spendy, wasteful.
Incompetent was another word I would have used. Yeah, cool.
I don't know if I would go that far, but they have also paid some very good engineers to make Firefox a very good browser.
But they could still do that with the other 80-odd million that they're bringing in.
Yeah. And I think that people have somewhat overreacted to this because just because they lose the Google money doesn't mean they can't get Microsoft money, for example. They just do a deal with them to put Bing as the default search. It'll probably make them a lot less than with Google, but it'll still be millions of dollars a year.
I think the mistake is them trying to run it like it's a for-profit business. I think they need to get rid of all the extra fat in the organization, perhaps, and, maybe some of the managers who haven't really paid their way.
I agree. And I think for a long time now, over a decade, Mozilla has been aware of this problem. It's been haunting it. It's been kind of making it make some crazy decisions, it seems to me. And it's better to just get that problem done and finished with so that Mozilla can hopefully reinvent itself on more modest terms, but still with supreme capabilities to focus on the browser. Sooner or later, they're going to lose this money from Google, and they should just pretend like they haven't got it.
Yeah. The sword of Damocles.
Yes, that's
hanging over their head.
Yeah.
Because Google are appealing this, obviously, and nothing is going to happen immediately. But yeah, it couldn't hurt them to have another plan. And that's what they've been trying to do with the various things like the VPN stuff and all of that. But maybe they should just do the deal with Microsoft now. It might be for less money, but at least it's probably more solid. But then, if they did a deal with Microsoft, then the likes of you, Fanny, would be fucking moaning about it. Oh, I can't believe you're doing a deal with Microsoft.
I mean, it'd be about as good as getting a deal with Google. I mean, I don't value either of those two companies, so they never get a look in when I get a download of Firefox that gets disabled and I use my own. I just wish that they would do a deal where they get enough money to pay everybody's wages and concentrate on doing their job properly rather than get mountains upon mountains of money to do all sorts of airy-fairy nonsense that they are just wasting their money on. And, why do they have a CEO who clearly does nothing? Like, honestly, I don't understand the makeup of that company. It should be a bunch of engineers doing engineering work, and that's it.
You do need engineering managers, though.
Look, I'm not saying you don't, but I don't think you need what appears to be top-heavy setup that they've got going on there with this board and all this nonsense. It's a fucking browser. Make a privacy-focused browser. Even charge people a teeny minuscule amount per country based on their GDP and actually be the privacy-facing browser of the internet.
Well, you might get your wish. Who knows? But they are doing good stuff. Like, for example, Phelim, you put in this vertical tabs thing.
I put it in. I don't think it's good, but maybe somebody does. I wouldn't do that. I don't know. I don't know. It winds me up for some reason. I don't know why. I never like it. It's like the history sidebar thing. That's all I can think of. I can't think of it for tabs, but, some people might like it.
Yeah, but they're adding features to the browser.
Okay, but I don't think that means that they need to have hundreds of millions in revenue every year, though. That's the problem.
Well, yeah. Indeed. I mean, they need some millions. It costs a lot of money to make a browser and to maintain it and to add features and keep on top of security updates and all the rest of it. Because the kind of engineers that you need for that cost an awful lot of money. But they don't need hundreds and hundreds of million. I agree. I feel like if they couldn't do a deal with Microsoft, you could probably run the whole thing on donations. If they came out and said, look, we're absolutely fucked here. We need you all to donate. And if they had a pop-up in the browser themselves saying as much, then I reckon they could probably do it.
There's this marketing guy, I think his name is Wales, Jimmy Wales or something. I think they could get him in like clip art to pop up out the corner of the browser. Job done.
I've never seen him begging for money.
No, yeah, it's weird.
I think it's a good idea, especially if they could give us some sense of ownership in it and they listen to the things that we'd like them to focus on.
Well, that's the thing. It's like there is a desperate want for privacy online, and they could champion that so well.
Well, and right now, Firefox is going through its Linux versus Vista moment. So back when Windows Vista came out and then Windows 8 came out and Windows 11 came out, we all talked about how this is Linux on the desktop's chance. Well, we're basically in this situation now with browsers because Google are getting rid of Manifest v2 and forcing v3, which means that the likes of uBlock Origin basically don't work. And so we have this chance to kind of shepherd people towards Firefox. Hey, here's this browser where you can actually do what you want and have a really nice browsing experience. I don't think it's very likely that many people will make the change, but there is a great opportunity there.
Well, I think if you get your story, as in, that sort of grand arching theme of a story about how you're there to protect the people and they're not the product like every other bloody browsers is, you could do something with it.
Yeah, but whatever you do, don't add ad tech to your browser. Too late. Oh, well. We'll all just have to use Chrome instead. Okay, this episode is sponsored by Entroware. Go to entroware.com. Entroware sells computers with Ubuntu and Ubuntu Mate pre-installed. They've got a range of desktops, laptops, and servers, and most parts are configurable, so you can pick the CPU, RAM, and storage that's right for you. If you can't find exactly what you want, then do contact them, and they'll work with you on a bespoke solution that's perfect for your needs. They ship to the UK, Republic of Ireland, France, Germany, Italy, and Spain. And if you do buy one of their machines, there's a little drop down at checkout and you can select Late Night Linux so they'll know that we sent you. So go to entroware.com for all your Linux computing needs. On to a bit of admin then. First of all, thank you everyone who supports us with PayPal and Patreon. We really do appreciate that. If you want to join those people, you can go to latenightlinux.com/support. And remember that for various amounts on Patreon, you can get an advert-free RSS feed of either just this show or all the shows in the Late Night Linux family. And you even get some episodes early. And if you want to get in contact, you can email show@latenightlinux.com. All right, let's talk about this dual boot fuck up. Microsoft patched Windows and it broke secure boot for dual boot systems. Now, I don't think that we should pretend to know enough about the details to go into it. Instead, I'll link to the Ubuntu Security Podcast, episode 235, where Alex goes into great detail with it. And he actually explains it in a very easy to understand way. I would highly recommend subscribing to that podcast, actually, because it's not just about Ubuntu. He talks about, I remember the XZ stuff. He did a brilliant roundup of that as well. But what I took away from it is we as Linux users are at the behest of Microsoft, essentially, still when it comes to secure boot. I mean, yeah, you can turn off secure boot. And to fix this, all you have to do is turn off secure boot, update the Linux system, and then you can turn secure boot back on and get back into your system. But nevertheless, Microsoft is still in control of this, and I do not like that.
Not to mention the fact that secure boot is an absolute farce at this point anyway. So, yeah, cool. Cheers, guys.
I don't think it's fair to call it a farce. There was a massive hole in it, and that is what Microsoft were trying to fix. The problem here is, as always, what can we do about it? And the answer to that is nothing, because you need to go and convince the motherboard manufacturers to start putting in trusted keys from somebody else so that all Linux distros can benefit from that. Who could be those people? Could it be Ubuntu? Could it be Red Hat? Probably. Will it be? No. So we're stuck with it. Generally speaking, Microsoft have done a pretty good job of sticking to their word and allowing Linux distros to get access to those keys, albeit managed by Microsoft.
Yeah, allowed. Like, oh, please, sir, can I have some more? Like, fuck that. Fuck that.
But who are you angry at here, though?
The world, Will. I'm angry at the world.
Fair enough. I don't like those guys.
But this is the same motherboard manufacturers that included all the keys that you weren't supposed to. Test key do not include .cert. Oh, yeah, I've installed that one as well. So, I mean, it's a complete giant pointless farce. This is where I think that they went completely the wrong way with secure boot, UEFI and all that sort of shite. It's just far too complicated. It should be dumb, simple, and it shouldn't have things like network stacks on motherboards and being able to download drivers across the internet with horrific versions of SSL that are so out of date. TLS, sorry. It's too big. It's too complicated and people can't follow these things.
In my day, we didn't use a mouse in the BIOS.
What do you fucking need to use a mouse in the BIOS for anyway? It's ridiculous. I have animated images of fans going around in mine. It's the most pointless bollocks I've seen in my life. It should be the smallest possible amount of code you can get away with. That is the most secure. That is auditable. It shouldn't be left to a chip manufacturer to do this.
Until such time as a little CR2032 battery expires, the BIOS settings get lost, and then you're completely screwed because you can't get remote access to that machine. And if that's in a data center halfway around the world, someone's getting on a plane. So, there are reasons that it is this way, and those reasons are valid.
Do you not think that should be a general purpose board that runs a proper OS like Linux that can be updated in software, not some shonky third party that is built by one dodgy company down a laneway somewhere and is bought by all the motherboard vendors to install incorrectly, I may add? It's terrible. It's just shite. The lot of it.
Well, you are correct, of course. I think the answer to the question, who are we angry at here, is, as always, capitalism.
The thing is, as I remember, none of us liked it at the time. None of us liked it when it was being discussed and when it was being proposed and when it was being designed and for all of these reasons. And, it turns out the 48% were right.
There's also an argument that if you're dual booting with Windows, then you deserve everything you get.
Yeah.
Chrome dropped support for Ubuntu 18.04, but it'll be back, says the Register. This is a strange one. Out of the fucking blue, Chrome just couldn't be updated on 18.04. And this was because of a GCC dependency. And Google just pulled this shit silently. Didn't mention anything until people noticed. And then they said, all right, yeah, well, I suppose we'll fix it and let you know when we're going to deprecate it again. And in their defense, 18.04 is out of standard support at this point. However, it's going to be supported by Canonical, if you're willing to pay them, until 2030. So another 6 years with no Chrome. Now, I know that super long-term support is generally aimed at servers, but it is also offered for desktops. But what use is a desktop that can't run the world's most popular browser? I mean, yes, use Firefox, blah, 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 whatever. The reality is people use fucking Chrome.
That last statement about dual boot and Windows for this, but replace Chrome.
But, say you've got a desktop Ubuntu system in a business critical environment and part of that workflow relies on Chrome. Now you're just not going to get any updates after. I mean, they're going to update it now for a bit, but then they'll stop at some point soon. And if you had planned, I mean, again, it's your fault if you'd planned to use the thing till fucking 2030.
A serious question. Could a snap of it not work to fix this issue?
Yes, exactly. I mean, Graham, I don't want you to put your work hat on, but yeah, that's why, or at least one of the reasons, Firefox was snapped, wasn't it? To make it much easier to support across ancient versions.
Yeah, that's exactly the case, yeah.
Why won't Google work with Canonical to snap Chrome then, one wonders? I suppose that's way above your pay grade.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because there's a Chromium snap.
Yeah, there is.
I mean, one would assume that it's to do with the fact that it's proprietary and copyrighted and you need to have distribution agreements and all the rest of it. But I don't understand why all that stuff hasn't been sorted out. That's just politics at the end of the day, corporate politics. There's no technical reason, is there?
Especially when Microsoft Teams has got a snap.
Yeah.
But Microsoft love Linux.
Oh,
well, that's true.
That's true. Yeah, good point.
I think the reality is that for the Chrome team, all 6 Ubuntu users are just not worth their effort. Obviously, I'm taking a piss here. There are probably millions of Chrome users on Ubuntu, but it just doesn't factor into their list of things to care about because it's so insignificant. That's the reality.
But they make binaries. They have a repo. So why not do it the Snap way? Surely it'd be easy for them to do it the Snap way, wouldn't it? Especially if Canonical was willing to do some of the work to package it.
Well, I think that's the problem. I think is that Google are very precious about Chrome. It is a very important part of their ecosystem. And they frankly don't trust anybody to do the job the way that they want it to be done. They want control over that full process.
Well, again, it's Linux being at the behest of a huge proprietary software company. You can say that you're going to support your operating system for 12 years, but if the applications that people want to run on it aren't supported, then you're just fucked, aren't you?
It's a feature.
If it drives more people to Firefox, then it's definitely a good feature, yes. But I'm not holding my breath. Apple is a shower of bastards, and just a quick public service announcement about that. So Apple has forced Patreon into paying the 30% Apple tax, essentially. So say someone signs up to support this show and all the other great Late Night Linux family shows in the Patreon app on iOS, then Apple is taking 30% of that every month from now on.
That is shocking.
It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And so what Patreon has done is, by default, said, well, we're going to have to charge more then. We're going to have to put that 30% back on top. So the announcement is this. If you want to support us, use the web to do that. If you're an iOS user, don't use the app because you're going to pay more than everyone else.
I hope Patreon puts like a wee sticker on the thing for any Apple purchases, but puts really shitty kerning on the fonts just to annoy Apple.
I mean, just fuck Apple, honestly. This is such a shit move by them.
It's very difficult to think of any reason why this is a good idea other than what we previously said about capitalism. And I imagine most people's pension funds, most people in the world's pension funds are probably invested in Apple, and there's a reason for that, and it's because of this sort of bullshit behaviour.
Mm-hmm.
Down with pensions.
Well, a bit of good news to end on. Raspberry Pi Pico 2, the new $5 microcontroller board. So this is essentially just an update to the old Pi Pico, and it's just better. But there's something exciting about it, and that is that as well as ARM, there's RISC-V cores.
Yeah, that is really interesting. I don't know enough about it, but you have to choose at boot time or something which cores you're going to use, so it's one or the other. But it's still very great for experimentation.
Yeah, and this is very low power in it. It's not desktop stuff at all. This is more Will's domain with his like radiator valves and all that kind of shit.
Yeah, it is, but it's still incredibly powerful. It's got so much memory by comparison. It's got so much memory and so much raw power. It could be used for real tasks, real computing tasks. People have been running Doom on it. I know that's you can run it on a toothbrush these days, but it is to all intents and purposes, a fully fledged computer. I wouldn't be surprised if people are running Linux on it before too long. Like it's that powerful.
I wonder could you use it for signal processing, like ADS-B stuff, because I tested an aerial to see if it was better, and I was going to install it on my chimney of my house and feed. It came with a molded on 30-foot cable, and when I plugged it in, because I was going to feed it down the old chimney pipe to get it downstairs to the Pi, but on plugging it in, the signal was so absolutely terrible. Like, I mean, only about 30% of the shite free antenna that I snipped off with a pliers to 69 millimeters to make it the right size for the wavelength. It was getting like 3 times the strength pickup because that cable was killing all the thing. But imagine you could put one of these in a weatherproof case and stick it on the actual aerial itself.
What, to boost the signal?
Well, to just do the digital bit as close to the aerial as possible.
Right.
I think you'd need some proper demodulator. You probably can do it. I don't know that the processor would be fast enough, but maybe. What do I know?
But either way, it's exciting that Raspberry Pi are getting into the RISC-V game. Who knows where it's going to end up? I don't think it's going to end up with a Pi 6 RISC-V version that's more powerful than the 5. But you never know in 5 years where this might lead to.
I think they're very wedded to the ARM ecosystem, and rightly so. But yeah, who knows what will happen in the next 5 years. What we do know is that by hopefully the end of this year, I think, there should be a version with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi on board. And I think that will be a lot of use to all manner of projects. We'll see some really amazing things coming from that.
Right, well, we better get out of here then. We'll be back next week when who knows what we'll be talking about. But until then, I've been Joe.
I've been Phelan.
I've been Graham.
And I've been Will.
See you later.